Good morning, magandang umaga po. Today we're going to talk about, well, in the past days we have been talking about how to enter the Philippines. Today we're going to talk about how do you get out of the Philippines? What do you need? And the change as recent as February 28, the end of the month of February, the change that was made by the Bureau of Internal Revenue to make it easy for those who have expired re-entry permit to come back to the Philippines. Stay with me, that's what we'll talk about. Well, in the past days, as I mentioned, we have been talking about how to enter the Philippines, when can you enter the Philippines, who can enter the Philippines, but today we're going to talk about leaving the Philippines. We're not going to talk about the testing or procedures, requirement. Those will depend on the state you're going to, if you're going to the United States or the country you're going to, as well as the airline you're taking, which airline you're taking. They have their own set of policies, so just inquire with them. But what we're going to talk about is immigration requirements when you're exiting the Philippines. All right? So, let's go through it. Bureau of Immigration advised foreign nationals to secure an Immigration Clearance Certificate, that's ECC, before leaving the country to ensure that they will not experience problems at the bureau counters upon their departure. There was one viewer who was a little bit arrogant and said to me, gee, if they're going to stop me from leaving the country, I'm going to report them to the United States, I'm going to sue them, blah, blah, blah. Keep one thing in mind, whether you're an American citizen or not, the United States is not going to protect you if you are in violation of the country's laws, assuming those laws are legal, okay? So, do not assume that just because you're an American that you will be defended by the United States. I'm an American too, but I'm not relying on that. I just have to follow the law. Okay, what is the law when you're leaving the country? Well, you're supposed to get an ECC clearance. An important pre-departure document, the ECC, is issued to the foreigner who are holders of immigrant and non-immigrant visas who are leaving the country. It has two types, A and B, ECC-A and ECC-B. The ECC is given to departing foreigners to serve as proof that they do not have any derogatory records in the country and no pending obligations with the government. It may be secured at the BI main office or select district offices, satellite offices, field offices, one-stop shop. In particular, this is talking about ECC-A. So, for example, if you have unpaid taxes, you should have paid taxes and you did not pay, that will be recorded at the Bureau of Immigration. Suppose you committed a crime, you cannot leave the country, that will be at the record of the immigration office, so when you check out, that's going to be checked. So that is the reason for this exit clearance, to make sure that, for example, you did not overstay. If you overstayed for 10 years and you only have 1 year or less to stay in the country, you have a lot of penalties to pay. So don't think you can just hop onto one of the airlines and go. You're gonna get checked, okay? A foreign national may apply for an ECC at least 72 hours prior to his or her departure from the Philippines. In 2015, well, that's the most recent statistics I have, 33% of people who were not allowed to leave the country because they failed to present an exit clearance. 33%, that's one-third. One-third of the people who are supposed to have exit clearances, and they did not have it, they were not allowed to exit. So they have to get the exit clearance first and come back before they can fly out. Now, let's talk about the A. Foreigners who should secure ECC-A. Tourist visa holders who have stayed in the Philippines for more than 6 months or more. Now, so a lot of tourists before, 30-day visa free, they will come in, and then when they're ready to go, they just go out. None of these ECC requirement. I wonder why that is. Well, I guess the likelihood of you committing something, although you can commit it in day 2, okay, committing something or not paying something, is less likely, but when you're there for 6 months, that's when they want to make sure that you are all clean before you leave the country. Holders of expired immigrant and non-immigrant visa. Okay, if it's expired, then they want to make sure that you pay all the penalties and such, or renew whatever need to be renewed before you head out. Holders of native-born status who will depart from the Philippines for the first time. So if, let's say, there's a native-born person, they should be adequately documented in the Philippines where they were born. So before they depart, they should clear it up. If there is anything that they need to file, that it's filed, and so forth and so on. Only the first time. Holders of temporary visitor visa with final extension and subject to orders to leave, and bona fide seafarers who have stayed in the Philippines for 30 days or more and has duly approved discharge from the Bureau of Immigration. The ECC-B is being issued by the Bureau to holders of immigrant and non-immigrant visas with valid ACR I-Card and are leaving the country temporarily. So when you have an ACR card, that means you're there for quite some time, and whether you're an immigrant or non-immigrant, you have an ACR card, you're supposed to get an ECC-B. It is a single-use receipt issued to evidence their Special Return Certificate, SRC, Special Return Certificate, that's for non-immigrants, or Reentry Permit, RP, for immigrants. So if you're an immigrant, you get an RP. If you're a non-immigrant, you will need SRC. That is for you to come back to the country, which is valid for 1 year. It may be secured at the BI main office or in the airport upon departure. Okay, you can either get it in advance at the Bureau of Immigration office or right there at the airport when you depart. Now, the BI chief warned foreigners against procuring fake and fraudulently issued ECCs from unauthorized private entities and individuals offering to provide this document. Any person found in possession of such fake document shall be charged for violating the Philippine Immigration Act. So you have the responsibility to be sure that what you're getting is not fake. Okay? So it's just like in the drug trafficking arena. If you're caught with a drug, you may not be selling it, you may just be consuming it. You're responsible for it. The Bureau will eventually come up with automated ECC kiosk to centralize and simplify the process of issuing the ECC. That's nice. Question is, when? It says eventually. Now, here's the important thing. February 28, just 2 days ago, aliens with expired re-entry permit may now renew at the airport, because there were a lot of people who had the re-entry permit and then they got caught by the pandemic, and even though they want to return, they cannot return because the airport is closed, the tourists are not allowed, all kinds of restrictions. So what do you do when your re-entry permit has expired? The Bureau of Immigration said foreigners with valid visas and whose re-entry permits have expired may now re-enter the Philippines upon payment of required fees at the airport. So you do not have to go to the Philippine consulate. I had such inquiry regarding this, and they just clarified it 2 days ago that now you can get it renewed at the airport or pay whatever fee need to be paid at the airport even though it is expired. Now, one thing I'm going to suggest to people or travelers is to make sure you carry all your documents every time you come in and out of the border, out of the Philippines. And the reason is this: what happened with the pandemic? You went out. If all you have is the entry permit and you did not carry your visa, you do not have your visa, what's going to happen? It says here with valid visa, what do you have to show? See, in my case, I'm a dual citizen. So I'm a citizen here and I'm a citizen there. I have my birth certificate from the Philippines. I have my immigration paper with me all the time, my naturalization paper. I have my Philippine passport, my US passport, everything, including one old Philippine passport. I have all the documents with me, including marriage certificate and I don't think I have my kids because I gave them all to them. and I'm not traveling with my kids anyway at this point. So that's it. My reentry certificate, all those are all in one packet. My dual citizenship papers, even though I have a Philippine passport and I don't really need those, I still carry those with me all the time. Okay? Some of you will ask, gee, you know, can I just bring this instead of this? Come on, that's just a piece of paper. I mean, it's not like it's one luggage full of documents. No. So just take them with you. Be safe. The new rules apply to foreigners who have been issued immigrant and non-immigrant visas and who are returning to the Philippines after being stranded abroad due to the pandemic. BI was instructed to allow the re-entry of aliens with expired re-entry permit, that's RPs, and special return certificates, SRCS, instead of sending them back to their port of origin. So instead of Philippine government asking you to go back and renew whatever need to be renewed or refreshed, let's say, at the Philippine consulate, they will go ahead and accept it in the Philippines. So that's good news. An RP is issued to a holder of an immigrant visa who is a permanent resident of the Philippines, while SRC is obtained by non-immigrant visas such as holders of 9G working visa and 9F student visa. Now, if you will notice, there's nothing here about Philippine citizens because Filipinos can go in and out, and dual citizens, of course, are Filipino citizens also, as well as balikbayan. Balikbayan is allowed 1 year, but there is no requirement to get an exit clearance. They're treating you as if you were a Filipino, even though you're no longer a Filipino citizen. Okay, so they're giving you the privilege. So you go in and out. And for tourists, those who are entitled to the 30-day free visa, this is before the pandemic, they will give you the same break because there's a lot of processing, paper processing. Okay, especially if you're supposed to get it within 72 hours before your departure. So for 30 days, they don't bother with it. Said aliens cannot leave the country unless they have secured their RP or SRC as well as their Immigration Clearance Certificate. So it's a mandatory thing. The move will facilitate unhampered entry of foreigners with existing valid visas who were not permitted to enter the Philippines when the coronavirus struck the world last year. Many of these foreign nationals have already expired RPs and SRCs, a lot of them, and the new procedure will allow them to renew this at the airport upon arrival. So you don't have to worry about a thing, just bring your expired thing and visa and whatever record you have available with you. Official receipts of these payments are to be presented to the immigration officer upon these aliens return to the country. Re-entry permits are valid from 6 months to 1 year from the date of foreigners' departure. When did we have this CPP virus situation? Back in February or March, and it's now March, so that's 1 year, approaching 1 year. So most, if not all, those who were stranded back in February or March of last year will need this. So you can renew at the airport. And some of them were even earlier, like 6 months. It's only good for 6 months. It says 6 months to a year. Now, source of this information, Bureau of Immigration, there is the link, and I'll put them down below also in the comment section. You can just click it and read it at your pleasure. And also from the Facebook account of the Bureau of Immigration. So the good news here is that the people who left the Philippines last year and now cannot come back because of the pandemic, you don't have to worry about going to the Bureau of Immigration to renew or straighten out or refresh whatever document you have that needs some renewing. Okay, you can just go ahead, go back to the Philippines with all your documents with you, and then right there at the airport they will process you, and you'll be able to get back in. So that's a good answer to the question I received before, and before I told them, oh, talk to the immigration office or the Philippine consulate, I should say, and you know how difficult it is to contact the Philippine consulate if they get back to you at all. Some of them are now responding to emails. I hope that will keep on going and even improve, and Enjoy your stay in the Philippines if you're going back to the Philippines. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I'll be glad to answer it if I can. Otherwise, please do share this with other people, and I'll appreciate it if you click like and do subscribe to my channel unless you have already done so. Thank you so much, and make it a great day. God bless.